Good morning, everybody. Real quick, if you could, how many guys here have turned pins before? Okay, so most everybody here. What I do might not be the right way, but it's the way I do it. It's worked for me so far. I don't know if any of you guys know, and I've mentioned this in the meeting a couple times. I started out turning big stuff. I bought a Delta lathe, had no idea what I was doing. I about killed myself a couple of times. Stuff came off the lathe. It really hurts when it hits you spinning about 3,000 RPMs and you don't know what you're doing. So I tried turning bowls, had no idea really what I was doing. And I met this gentleman right here down at Woodcraft. If you guys have never been to Tom's house, he will show you at Woodcraft or at his house how to turn, and he knows what he's doing. He turns a little bit fast for me, but he does know how to turn. After turning bowls, another guy I know, he said, you know, a lot of guys start out small. He said, why don't you turn some pins, learn spindle work, and then work your way back up again? And I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. So pin turning became kind of a heavy-duty hobby for me, and then it became a business. Not big business, but I've got two gentlemen down in Sheboygan, two different businesses. They order 1,000 pins a year for me. That's not that big. But I would have liked to have made it bigger. But working full-time and trying to turn, it's really hard. This is what I use at home, 3520. I bought a small lathe. I've got a Jet 1221 variable speed, and it sucks. Don't waste your money on them. If you can, buy the Delta. I had one of those, and it worked. I could turn pins on it. It was really good for that. And then I got a good deal on the Jet, so I sold my Delta, got the Jet. It was supposed to be a better lathe, and I can literally stop it turning a pin, just a small spindle, and the Jet stops. I might have a bad one, but I've gone back to my Powermatic, and it's done me well. All right. When you're turning pins, first thing you need to do is decide what kind of wood you're going to use. Guys, any kind of wood will work. You can go in your scrap bin. You can go to your wood pile, take it, cut it on a bandsaw. I prefer 3/4 by 3/4 or 5/8 at the smallest. I know some guys can turn 1/2 inch, but that works for me. You get, if your drill, when you drill your centers, wanders a little bit, it gives you a little bit of leeway to get through the pin blank. First, you need to decide what kind of kit you're going to use. When you're starting out, if you haven't turned pins before, I would go with just a slimline pin. They're easy to do. The pin tubes are the same length. They're simple to glue up and easy to turn. And for learning how to spindle turn, you get a very slim pin. A lot of people like a slim pin, and you're done. So if you guys are hanging with me right now, I'm having a hot flash. I think so. My wife came into the shop last night and she said, you're red as a beet. And I said, I don't know why. And I never complain about it being too hot. And I went outside last night and it was about, 40 degrees? And I said, that felt good. And I've never had that problem. She just went through that, so yeah, now I know what she went through. Yeah. All right. Mandrels. If you buy a mandrel, get an adjustable mandrel. That way you don't have to fool around with a bunch of different bushings. You can adjust it, slide it in and out, and it'll fit every style pin that you're going to turn. It's the easiest route to go. You spend a little bit more money. The last time I bought one, I bought this one, it was $29. You get 2 little sticks. You can loosen it, slide your centerpiece in and out, set it up, and all you want it to do is have it when you do your knurl. You want just a little bit hanging out of the center post once you've got your bushings on for your pin kit. Each pin kit has a different style bushing. Each pin kit has a different size pin tube. It can go from 7 millimeters all the way up. I've got one, this pin here. Just the kit on this pin right here is $100. I've got a lawyer in Green Bay. He buys 15 of these from me every year. He gives them out to his top clients. He really likes them. It's got a... Oh, you want to see that? All right. How's that? You zoom in on that too? Okay. Sorry about that. It has a gel for the cartridge. It writes really good. They're a really nice pen. Personally, I wouldn't spend the money for me, but when you're a lawyer, you know, money's no object. But it's got a 11/30 seconds or something pin tube in it. It's really big. Once you decide pin kit, your pin tubes, you want to drill your center out on your wood. Sorry, I should be a little more prepared here, but anyway, can you get on that? How's that? Yes, it is. But once it turns on the lathe, it'll center up perfect. Some guys use 2-part. Some guys prefer the 2-part epoxy. They have if you go to Woodcraft, they have a 2-part epoxy, smaller tubes. It dries in 5 minutes. Mix it up. You take your pin tube and you scruff it up with sandpaper, put the glue on it, and then slide it in, let it dry. When I'm in production mode, I can turn about 6 pins an hour. I use super glue. I spray the inside of the wood with accelerator, take the C8, put it on the tube, slide it in, and set it. I usually end up with about 30 pins set up on my workbench. When these are drying, I do something else, come back, and as they dry down the line, I start throwing them on the lathe and turning them.
How thick is it?
I use medium. Sometimes if you get a real porous wood like a burl, it doesn't hurt to take and run thin CA down through it and just let it dry. Don't spray it or anything. Just set it aside. Then come back with the medium and put it in, because when you drill, guys, wood has grain, and it has knots. It has everything in it that you never see. And when you drill, that drill bit will wander. And I was talking about this morning. I like Colt drill bits. They're the sharpest, and they have the widest flutes, and they clean the chips out quick, but they're not real sturdy. And as they go in, they will wander a little bit. And I've been drilling on a drill press and had the drill bit come out the side of a pen blank. That sucks, but it happens. But it's only wood. When I'm mixing my own acrylics, then I get a little upset. But the wood, I mean, this piece here is a piece of bird's eye maple, and it came out of the scrap bin. Wood's everywhere. I mean, if you really get down to it, some pallets are made out of oak, and they have oak stringers in them. Just stop on the side of the road, pick up a couple of pallets, take them home, take the nails out, cut them up, and you'd be amazed at the grain you can get in the wood. It's everywhere. Nothing goes to waste. This piece here, I use veneers. I don't know if you guys saw now it's time for me to throw my ad in here. I've got a box of veneers over there, $1 a sheet, whatever one you want. But I glue 3 or 4 pieces of veneer together, cut the wood on the scroll saw, kind of at an off angle, glue every veneer, and I've got a little device I made out of rough leftover pieces of wood, put the pin blank in there with the cut, put the veneers in the middle, and then I take a wedge from each end and it just holds it till it dries. Put a piece of wax paper in there so don't glue it to your wedge sled. It kind of sucks. But then turn that, and it's really cool looking. I mean, you get a neat pin. All right. Once you get your tubes glued in, everything's dry, decide on what kit you're going to use. Get your bushings, put them on. In this case, I'm turning a European style pin. It's got a larger bushing on this end, and then in the center there's a floating bushing, and this 2-part bushing allows you to make a step in the pin blank for a collar. So once you turn this down to a certain point, you slide this over and you have your collar, and then when you take this off and start to put it together, you glue a collar on there and it looks pretty cool. The inside is for what the collar slides on, and the outside is so that the diameter matches the actual collar once it's on there. It's a 2-part process. All right. I turn at about 2,500 RPM. Oh, is there a switch over here? Oh, I don't have one of those. I'm not that fancy. Starting out, I'm going to be using a roughing gouge. My wife didn't want me to put a hole in her bag. That's, yeah. I have a white side, there you go. And I just true up the end of the pin blanks. Sorry about that. Nothing ever works like it does at home. Nah. This thing backed off. Okay. Try one more time. I planned it that way. All right, I cheat. When I get to this point, I use my roughing gouge just to bring it down, knock most of it off. I don't know if you heard Tom, but he said I'm being too aggressive. But when I'm turning out, trying to get 100 pins a day done, I turn like that. Yeah, I do. I break a lot of my blanks, but the time lost is not that big a deal. All I'm doing here with the parting tool is bringing it down to meet the bushing. Now here I'm setting up for the step. And there the step goes over, and then for the outside diameter I just bring this in until that step stops. Right there it touched it, I'm done. I am coming in almost to the bushing, but not quite. 9 times out of 10 I don't sand, but today for you guys I will. Here I turned off the lathe. I make an adjustment to my tool rest. Is that smooth, Doc? Not? Yeah.
That's quite nice.
That's smoother than sandpaper, isn't it?
Yes. That's quite nice.
All right. Once you get to this point, you want to bring your speed down on your lathe. You're only going to be turning barely on. At this point, all right, what I do with them? I got them. All right. First coat's thin CA. What stinks though is when you get a little bit in the corner of your mouth and you can't open your mouth all the way.
Well, you tell them about Pete now. They'll enjoy this.
All right. 3 drops, thin CA, across the first blank, fold your towel in half, 2 drops. Let that set by itself. Don't do anything yet. Thanks, Tom. Accelerator. Just a light coat. What did I do with that land? All the fine or thin CA does is seals the pores. Because this is bird's eye maple, I know it's hard. So I'm not real worried about filling any defects in the wood. If you use any other type of wood where it's porous, then you might want to put 3 coats on there. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Tell them about Pete.
I don't know that story.
Oh, don't you?
Mm-mm. What'd he do?
He did that. He got it in his mouth, and back up, he went inside, he told Barb, get the solvent. Get the solvent. His lips are glued together. She thought, yeah.
The things we learn. All right, medium CA. This doesn't drip very good, so I'm just running out a small dollop. And then, if you see guys on YouTube, they go back and forth on the piece. No need. Easy wipes. Uh-oh. I got more here. Another drop. Then just wipe it. Drop my top, everything. I'm not waiting for the medium to set up. I'm just going squirt across. Now let's leave that open. Just throw it down. I'm going to put 3 or 4 coats of CA. Stick fast. Number one, I use stick fast. It's cheaper. I tried the Star Bond that we sell here in the club. That works pretty good. At one point, I was using the expensive stuff. What's that called? Hot stuff.
Red one?
Yeah, hot stuff, the thin and the medium. And I didn't get any better results with that. The stick fast, I can't say it's any better or any worse than anybody else's. No. Nope. All right, that's 3 coats there. What I'll do is turn it off, look at it. I've got a little bit of ridges right here from wiping back and forth, but I've got a pretty good buildup. Now, at this point, the CA is tacky because I put them on one right after the other. Normally, when I get to this point at the house, I take them off, put them on. I've got little boards with little dowels in them, and I just set them on there and let them dry overnight. You get a better result, and the CA will stay clear. But for here, I've got a nice coat on the short end, but it's not as good a coat on the long end, so I'm going to put one more on. See if I can do this left-handed.
You always change, you never put the drop on with the same piece of.
No, I always fold it.
Why is that?
The CA, when you wipe it, it sets it and it starts to harden, and that's how you get scratches in the CA as you wipe back and forth.
Yeah, okay.
I try not to, but I usually go twice on each end, and that's usually enough for the CA to start setting up. If you let it start to get hard and you go back and forth, you'll notice that you'll get not only the CA mark, but you'll also get fine grooves in there, and you can't get them out. Then I have to go in with 200 or 400 grit sandpaper, knock it down a little bit farther than what I want.
That's what I'm doing wrong.
It's a learning curve. I tell you what, next year I'll give the order to you for 500 pins, and you'll learn how to do it. Water.
How often do you glue together your bushings?
Never. And if they do, there's a little trick with bushings. As you slide the pin off, when it gets to the end of the center post, break it off. But don't just go snap. Go just easy and then partial back the other way. That way you'll get a clean break and you won't end up.
Much too little?
That's fine. All right. That's good. Thank you, sir. When you're applying CA, a rule of thumb is shop towels, the blue ones. They don't set off it absorbs into the towel, but you don't see any smoke. If you use a white paper towel, even Scott's, it will start to set off the CA. And if it gets hard, that's how you scratch your finish as well. The blue towels, they work the best. They just, I don't know what they're made of differently, but they don't have a chemical in them to set off your glue. All right. At this point, with the back of your finger, check your pin and make sure that the CA is set. If it's not, it'll tug on your finger just a little bit. It will. All right. Abranet, 800 grit. Dip it in the water. And all I'm going to do is very, very lightly wipe it across the pin. I'm not putting any pressure. All I'm doing, because the Abranet's so sensitive, you can feel any ridges in the pin. Your fingertips are sensitive enough. You just wipe it. Light, light, light pressure. And now, at this point, my finish is smooth. Now all I have to do is take my micro mesh, and if I can remember what the right order is, I think it's rust, green, black. Take that, go like that. Between each micro mesh, wipe the piece. Wipe. Yes. It was in this baggie and it was wet. See the drops? All right, what color's next, Jerry? When in doubt, cheat. All right, tan.
I numbered mine, Kevin.
I don't doubt that. All right, wine. One thing I forgot this morning was my polish. Purple. And if you haven't used micro mesh before, this stuff goes from 1,500 all the way to 12,000 grit. It doesn't seem like it's doing much, but trust me, it really is the way to go.
How long does the pad last? I mean, if you take it back to the pad,
I've had these for 2 years. They might not even have anything left on them.
yeah, but the colors are still like
You heard of the frugal gourmet? I'm the frugal turner. All right. Okay. Normally at this point, I have the stick fast shine polish. and I use the high gloss. I forgot to bring it this morning. But you put just a little drop on there, and you take and very slowly just put one drop there, one drop there. I let it haze. Then I take and I turn my pen wide open. But here's the thing. The CA is susceptible to heat. If you grab a hold of that with your paper towel, then your finish will change. And if you go too far, then you'll get like it'll build up little balls, and your finish is gone. But just take this like this, and this is no polish on here. All right. Now, what I did is I ran this down with a little bit of pressure so you can see what the towel can do to the finish if you overdo it. On the bottom one, it's the way it should be, and on the long end, it's overdone. And what I call it is it cooked the finish. But it's no big deal. We've all got sandpaper. You just start over. Do not throw a pen blank away. All right, who's got the pliers?
You need some of your, you need some of
Uh-oh, Kelly's prepared. I used to get them at Woodcraft, but if you go to Woodturner's catalog, the more you buy, the cheaper they are, and I usually buy 500 at a time. So, all right, if you want to pass that around, if you look at the long end of the tube, I put pressure on it to show you what'll happen, and then on the other end, if you do it the correct way, that's what you get, and it's smooth. The paper towel? No, it doesn't. But normally I'm polishing. The finest grit sandpaper anybody can use is a brown paper bag. And that's what I keep a couple slices of in my shop as well. All right, any questions on that so far? Come on, there's got to be one. Yes, sir. Normally I do. I've been using that NYX friction polish lately, and that works really good. Or sometimes I use like the beeswax, but I don't see any advantage to that. Once you put just the stick fast polish, the high gloss, once you get to that point, that's all you want. Need them pliers again, buddy. My grip ain't what it used to be. No more questions?
We do have pen kits in the store if anyone wants, $2.
What the? Here we go. Oh, where'd Kelly go? All right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have a vise, a squeeze vise that clamps over. It's adjustable for the size of the pen blank. You can get them at Woodcraft or Woodturner's catalog. Yes, sir. If you take your time, and I found if you center punch them, then they drill pretty close to center. But when I'm production turning, I get in a hurry, and I don't even do that. I just, all my pin kits that I sell are wood, unless I'm at a craft show. Then I sell my acrylics. All the customers that these two guys have, they like the wood. I don't know why. There's more variety. And when I go to them, I just hand them a box full of pins, and they hand them out to their employees. Some of the employees have a preference, white or darker woods, but other than that, they just like the wood because they're all different. They always are. Now, I can go to some of the local cabinet shops in town and get their cutoffs and say they're running a bunch of cabinets in maple. Well, 90% of the wood's white. And the pins from that wood, they all look very similar. And that to me is boring, but I get some customers that want that light colored pin. Then if they're running black walnut, same thing. Then I end up with the darker pins. The other stuff, Tom, he gives me a lot of cutoffs when he's doing his bowl turning. Don't throw nothing away. I mean, I wanted to bring some other pins that I've done where, you know, when you cut off the ends of your pins for your blanks and you end up with a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch blank, save those. Run them on your sander, true them up a little bit, glue them all together, then drill them. It makes for an interesting pin. And if nothing else, once you glue them all up, use a straight edge, then take them and cut them down the middle and turn every other one a 1/2 a turn and make it look like a segmented pin. I mean, it's endless what you can do with a pin. And that's the thing. People in an office, they're always looking for something different, you know, when they're writing. And it's nice, you know, that's how I get a lot of my repeat sales is people come in and they say, where'd you get that pin, you know? I did a pin for a guy. I'll pass this around. It was made out of box elder, and it just so happened when it was turned that it looked like a flame coming up the center of the pin. Here, go that way. Well, I'll just let it go around. Just don't steal my phone. Yes, sir. All right. Where you want it. On this piece here, this is lilac. And to orient the grain, I took a pencil and I just scribbled on one side so I know that when I put it on there that it's going to match up. Is that what you were asking? No, I keep track of the grain because the way the grain runs down, it's like that picture coming around on my phone. The box elder, it faded in and faded out and then faded back in, the red. And when you look at it, it looks like flame going up the side of the pin in two different spots. It's really, you couldn't plan it that way. And it just made a really neat pin. And when I gave it to the guy, I mean, he was ecstatic. I mean, that's, face it, when we make something, we are all looking for that reaction that somebody's going to give us. And I live on that. You know me, I thrive on it. And it's just kind of cool. Another pin I tried turning, I was trying to do the Celtic knot, and I didn't realize that you had to do it on all four sides. I did it on two sides, and it came out with two circles. And I later found out that half of a Celtic knot is what they call a love knot. And it's a symbol of affection and love, and I had no idea. And I gave this pin to another guy, and he gave it to his wife. Well, she knew that, and he was like, oh, she could have got lucky if I wanted to, you know. And he said she just knew what it meant, and I had no idea. It was just one of those things, so it's kind of cool. You'll take it back. I don't want to stay up there. All right. What now? No. The mandrel's always the same. The center post is what it is. I mean, if you had to buy a new mandrel for every pin, you couldn't afford it. But each one of the bushings, the center of those is the same as the center guide on the mandrel itself. It's just the outside that changes for the outside of the wood. Well, everybody's heard that story here too, but when I first started turning pins, I really got into it, and I went crazy. And I went to my first craft show, and I had them priced $10, $15, $20. They said to go 2 or 3 times what the kit costs, and then figure something, couple bucks for your wood. So I went to a show here in town over at Bayport. I didn't sell one pin, and I'm like, golly, this is crazy. So I thought of something that happened when I was a young Marine. We were at a concert one time, and we had taken about 15 cases of beer to the concert, and they opened the doors early. So here we had all this beer, and we were trying to give it away, and nobody would take it. So my buddy said, let's sell it. We put $3 a can on the beer, and it was gone 5 minutes. I don't know what's up with people, but, you know, who can ever figure what they'll do? So another friend of mine, he said, up the price of your pens. So I doubled everything, and I sold a few. I tripled it, and I sold out within about a week. If you price something cheaply, people think it's cheap. If you price it for what it should truly be worth, people will buy it. The one pin in there, I'm not kidding you, I do sell 15 of those or so a year to this lawyer, $100 a piece. He doesn't even question it. Other pins in there. Prairie du Chien has a big show every year. I used to go to that one. I could go down there and sell my pins for 10 times what they were worth. In Green Bay at East High School, or West High School, I'm lucky if I get $15, $20 a pin. I make some money on them because kits cost $4 or $5 on some. The fancier pins, the kits can get pricey. And if you order from different people, and there's like a husband-wife team down in Kenosha, I can't think of their name right now, but they pour their own acrylics. And they are making some of the most beautiful acrylics you've ever seen. It's like Jerry, he did a bowl, that little thing, and it's got iridescent paint on it, and I thought it was acrylics. Because this couple down here, they're making these acrylics that are got an iridescence to them. They're phenomenal. I mean, just one blank, they're selling for $20. Box elder. And I mean, it came out the way it is. It was nothing planned on that. You couldn't have gotten that if you wanted to. You guys missed it, didn't you? Yeah, I make sure the grain runs the same on my pens. Oh, when you twist it back, that's when it matches, yeah. What'd you guys do to my phone? All right. Yeah. Did everybody see it? Everybody got to see that? All right. Yes. Right. Right. Absolutely. Anything that will fit on the mandrel, you can turn. They say that you can turn a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch square, but I always have problems drilling it. Somehow, some way, it doesn't always drill true. All right. No. No. I've experimented with pine cones and putting that in acrylics and then turning it, and that comes out kind of cool. Even saw a guy on YouTube, he put a handful of Legos into a white, acrylic, and it works. I tried it. It's really some neat colors that come out, and you see part of the top or the bottom and then just pieces. So, I mean, anything that you can put into a medium and it can get hard, it will turn. So, I do antlers. I was going to bring one today and I forgot it. The only thing, I wasn't going to turn it in here. If you ever smelled hair burning, that's what antler turns. When you turn it, it stinks. And when you turn 8 or 10 of those for an order, when you're done, you're ready to just be done. You want out of the room. So, do you guys know how to assemble the pins? Okay. Let me have that right there. All right. This here, I turned last night. This is... Oh, I'm making a mess. Let's see if we got enough room here. I'm all right. Oh, yeah. Who did that? All right. I turned this. It's the same thing. It's European style. I turned it at home last night before I came. This here, I glued the veneers into the wood. Ooh, the other way. Everybody see that? Everything's backwards in a camera. Do you know that? So you get your kit. First thing you want to do when you're making the European style is you want to find that ring. Somehow, inevitably, I always lose 2 in my shop. And I find them about 6 months later when I'm doing a massive cleanup. All right. Just thick, all right. Okay. On the short end, the European style, you can see the step. This is the center ring, and it fits on that step like that. Is that in there? Okay. My technique, I don't know if it's... put a small ring of medium all the way around. CA and the finish on gold, they don't get along. So you want to very carefully twist as you run that up. Leave it alone. Don't spray it with accelerator. Some reason accelerator ruins the finish on gold as well. And it only takes a few seconds for it to get set up. Watch for the squeeze out between the ring and the blank. That can make a real pretty pin look ugly real quick. Alright, we'll let that dry. On the long end of the pin, you want to put in the piece they call the nib. In the right end. Try doing about 50 pins at 12 o'clock at night, get in a hurry, and then all of a sudden, next morning, the nib's in the wrong end of all your blanks. Alright, this is an adjustable assembler. Tighten that down. Bring this up and just, I don't know if you can see that or not. Okay, and this just presses the nib up into the pin.
So that was no glue?
No, it's press fit. Alright, and then that's all there is to do for that one. That's one of the reasons I like the European style pins. Slimlines are even simpler. This is a two-piece cap. It screws in. Inevitably, you will lose this piece. Try finding that in sawdust. This is the cap, and then the clip goes on that. Screw it down tight as you can with your fingers. Now, this is something you want to watch. If your wood has a really cool feature to it, this was cherry burl. It's got a kind of a plain grain on one side, and then it's got a unique feature on the other side. Don't cover that up with your pin clip. Go to the side where it doesn't look quite as interesting. You can do that too. I've done that a time or two. See it? Oh, my hand's in the way, that's why. Now, normally, instead of adjusting this piece in and out and drive you crazy, I keep about 3 pieces of 3/4 inch wood right beside of my press, and I can put them in or out as I need them, and I don't have to adjust this every time for every piece on the wood. All right, that's pressed in. The next piece, if you make a cheater out of the wood, you'll get this right every time. But putting the barrel in, the pin, this is the transmission that controls the twist of your twist style pins. Trying to get this thing in there right every time, guessing, you put it in, you take it off, you put it in, you take it off until you get it about where you want it, so that the pieces or the tip of your pin lines up coming out the other end. So here I have a piece of wood, just a small piece, that I put right in here, and when I clamp this down, I know exactly where it's going to be.
Oh,
I never,
stop at the wood, then.
it stops on the wood, so I've got it every time. But if you measure the transmissions, I don't know how they screw this up, but every once in a while, a transmission is a 1/16 of an inch longer than all the rest. There's always one. Right. With the transmission turned, the insert all the way in, it's not coming out. So you're back to the drawing board again. You got to come back down and guesstimate how far to bring this in. So go in 1/8 of an inch or so. Put your, now we've got probably less than 1/16 of an inch of the end of the pin coming out. You want a little bit more than that. So back on the press. And at this point, you want to watch real close, and you just want to make sure that your pin piece, your transmission, goes in about that 1/16. And now you have the pin out the end. And when you back off your transmission, it retracts back into the pin. And that's what you're looking for. And then at this point, because I used the veneer, I want to find that where the veneer, the two veneers line up with the pin closed, and slide it together.
Pretty nice, you got payment for camera.
Pass that around.
You like it?
So, any questions on assembly?
The only piece you blew is that ring?
The only piece.
Is this acceptable?
Yes.
Okay, just,
For this one, it is.
okay.
In my house, no. I actually measure every one with a micrometer. You can pass that around. First, I go into the shop and I find all the woods I plan on using, and I cut every piece to about between 5/8 and 3/4 square, 5 inches long. And I've got a crosscut sled that I use on my bandsaw, and I can run about 15 or 20 blanks, I can't remember, through the bandsaw to get the lengths. And I've got a slidable stop on the other side that'll come up and hold everything in place. And I just run it through. Once I get usually about 100 blanks, then that's when I go and I drill everything on center. If I'm going to be, and my biggest seller is the European style. Everybody likes it. It's classy enough. You know, it's not fancy, but it looks good. And I can change. That's the other thing. When you're turning, like a slim line, they tell you to make the pin straight across from bushing to bushing. You don't have to do that. Take and put a little bit of a rise in it, or take a beading tool and just put 3 beads on there so it's comfortable to the fingertips, you know. Plus, a slimline pin will slip out your hand when you put a CA finish on it. So if you put little ridges on there, it's easier to hold on to. And it looks nice. That's just appealing to people's eye is the whole idea, but it's, you know, what we do. And no one of my pins ever look the same if I can help it. I just like to appeal to different people. It's limitless. This is a vortex pin. Can you get, yeah, shit, let me do it this way, be easier. You're not supposed to use that arm.
That's good. Just need protection.
All right, this is Vortex. This came from Wood Turners, or Craft Supplies, is that what it's called? Out of wood. This is another one, made with a cherry burl. Really sharp looking pen. I've got them overpriced, nobody will buy them, but that's okay. I like having them in the box. Piece of spalted maple with the black trim on the pen, so it really brought this one out nice. I wish I could take credit for the acrylic, but this is store-bought. But this is the European style, but it's in a satin finish, so it really goes with the acrylic really nice. And that's what you got to look for. You got have an idea of what goes with what. This is a cigar style pin, the ugliest pin I ever turned, but it's in a silver finish and then a black and white pin. I really think it's ugly. But at one time I had 3 of these in the box, and the lady bought the other 2, and if she'd had the money, she'd have bought that one. I don't get it. This one they call popcorn. And that's in the cigar style pin. The cigar style and the European style pin are the main 2 pins I turn because I have the most success with them. Yes. Yes. Have you tried it? Yes. Alumalite, the greatest thing about it is it doesn't smell. If you try the castings from Michael's, where it's a resin and then you have to use the catalyst, they stink. And if you're in a closed-in room, it will give you a headache. And I think it actually can do damage to you. The alumalite is an equal 2-part process. You weigh it on a scale. Part A, Part B, and the water clear, it has about a 17-minute open time, which I really like. And then everything that I pour, I can mix up everything, get my castings ready and my molds, and spray them. And what's that stuff called? Mark, where you at? What's that stuff you put in there to keep it from sticking? Yeah, the mold release. And then pour your stuff, and you can mix colors. I mean, you can mix 8 or 10 colors and then set up 3 or 4 trays and just pour it in there. And then with the different colors, mix them in. No pen will ever be the same. That's the neat part about it. But turning acrylics, it's messy. Your shop, it looks like crap for a week until you get it cleaned up.
Do you do hybrid castings with wood?
No, I haven't done that yet. I've got a pressure pot and I'd like to try it. And I'd like to do the vacuum chamber, but I haven't really had time.
So you're saying you want to stabilize it first and then cast it?
Yep. I've been lucky so far. That one pin that I just assembled. If you look at that really close, it fell apart. It cracked last night when I was turning it. It took me about an hour to find the piece that flew across my shop, but I wasn't going to give up on it. And that's one of my things is never give up on a pen. Super glue is an amazing product. And when people ask you what that crack is, you just say, that's part of the wood. That came out in the turning.